So more turmoil for the American people. Mr. Donnie J has done it again. Another bankruptcy to add to his repertoire of failures. Yes, he has. If you have not heard, Spirit Airlines is officially shut down. They are no longer in business. The company has been in business for about 34 years. Have you guys seen some of the footage across social media like TikTok and Facebook and different places like that? YouTube. I mean, these people are going through it. They're stranded. These are people that were on vacations and, they were attending weddings and different things like that, and they can't make it home. And some of these people, a lot of them don't even follow politics. So they had no clue until they got to the airlines, right? And then with some of these news outlets is reporting in terms of what the CEOs had to say is a whole nother story. We're going to take a look at this video on one of these news outlets that touched on that exact thing, and just got to get a little bit of a, deep dive into the situation, get a little substance about what people are talking about. I think that's just flat out crazy. I mean, and they shut it down about 3 a.m. about a day or two ago in the morning, and people were like literally boarding flights, getting ready to, go on their merry way and, about their lives or whatnot. And this news just comes out in terms of what happened and how it got to this point. Obviously, they were expressing that COVID, during that time when the world was shut down, really hit them really hard, and how things never really bounced back. You got people on the right that are blaming the Biden administration like it's a presidential issue, which to some degree it is, because like I said, Mr. Donnie J, he's really the root cause on why the whole thing failed to begin with. So I guess they had a deal on the table worth about 500 million or so. And the problem was Trump wanted to take primary stake in the company. And at first I thought to myself, I said, well, why wouldn't they take that deal if they were going to close, either way? But then, it came to a conclusion that he wanted to use it for military purposes, their planes. And with Donald Trump being as unpredictable as he is, they probably realized that just wasn't smart. And because they had pretty much ran out of money and they couldn't pay their employees and they couldn't refuel the planes and different things like that, they just had to let it go. I just think it's terrible how these, employees, found out, and how, a lot of the passengers and the patrons, they were kind of notified at the last minute, some of them showing up at the airlines literally just to get the news on the spot. I think it's terrible, but let's look at this video together.
Have some breaking news this morning. Spirit Airlines has shut down its operations, and it is urging passengers not to go to the airport if you have a Spirit flight today. We know a lot of you may have immediate travel plans, so other airlines are stepping in to help Spirit customers. That includes...
That's another thing. It's crazy because these other airlines are pitching in to try to help out, but we found out that they're still charging these people X amount of dollars to do so. One particular customer of the airline, she was saying how, I believe it was American Airlines, wanted $1,300. Like, where's the discount at? I thought that was crazy when I heard that. I mean, $1,300 when these people have already paid for what they paid for, and chances are they're not going to get a refund anytime soon. Those of them that are actually going to get one are going to get one. And how they're saying how a lot of refunds are going to come from contesting the credit card companies and things like that and the banks. But that's another thing, but
Southwest,
let's continue.
American, Frontier, and JetBlue Airlines, all of them are offering rescue fares. Spirit Airlines has been around for more than 3 decades, and this shutdown is effective immediately.
It's crazy.
The company tried to make a deal with the federal government to stay open after years of financial struggles, but it was not enough. The airline's president and CEO, Dave Davis, shared this statement overnight, saying in part, for more than 30 years, Spirit Airlines has played a pioneering role in making travel more accessible and bringing together people while driving affordability across the industry. He goes on to say, quote, I want to thank the Trump administration for their extraordinary efforts to try to preserve jobs and service across the country. Now, flights for Spirit Airlines stopped around 2 a.m. local time this morning, stranding.
Did you guys hear that? What the CEO had to say? The guy that was originally from the real world, being Secretary of Transportation, and I think he's the one that was communicating with this guy, but the point he was just making about Donald Trump, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, my thing is, this guy is the reason you guys are out of business. His war, Trump's war that's costing billions of dollars to operate, which raised fuel prices, which is the reason why you guys couldn't afford to survive after this, during the second bankruptcy. And you give this man praise. I mean, come on. I mean, obviously, I commend them for, not agreeing to the deal to some degree, but 17,000 workers are out of a job right now. 17,000. I mean, these are pilots, stewardess, baggage handlers, and amongst other positions. A lot of them which found out, through media versus through the company itself, because the company, even though you would think they would have known, a lot of them didn't know. They were hit just as hard as the patrons that were expecting to have a flight, scheduled for them. But let's continue.
Thousands of passengers across the country. Here's ABC's Michelle Franzen.
After 3 decades in the skies, Spirit Airlines is shutting down, ceasing operations for good, forcing passengers flying in the coming days to scramble.
Wow. I'm actually shocked. At this point, I don't know what to do at this point.
Spirit Airlines had been seeking about $500 million in federal aid in exchange for giving the U.S. government a majority stake in the company, but the two sides unable to reach a deal. Spirit helped define the era of no-frills air travel, ultra-low base fares with fees for nearly everything else.
Which it wasn't
from bags
really
to seats to snacks.
As cheap as they say. I mean, obviously, if you guys have ever flown Spirit, then you know that in reality, you're still paying for, I guess, extra expenses in terms of, your luggage. I mean, you were paying for water, you were paying for snacks, you were paying for, to some degree, you're paying for the air you breathe on that airplane. I mean, nothing was free. It was just a clever marketing thing that they had in place to where, they could lure you in and thinking that you're getting a cheap seat when in reality, you're still paying X amount of dollars. I mean, granted, it was probably cheaper than some of the larger airline companies like United and Airlines, American Airlines, for example, but you weren't saving a whole lot. I mean, because my thing is, I learned my lesson. I flew them one time, and I swear I never would again. I figured, I might as well go over to Delta, or I might as well go over to American Airlines and pay that extra $200-300 just to be comfortable and have everything else offered to me, because at least I know for a fact what I'm getting up front instead of any surprise fees and things like that. But I mean, it's not a huge surprise that they're out of business, but strategists were saying that they were pretty successful up until about 2019 when the pandemic really hit. And, in so many words, it was expressed that the competition began to take on some of the same models. The only difference was, their model, the other models with the other airline companies wasn't, you're going to pay for every little thing. We're going to include some things still as a courtesy, but at the same time, we're going to charge you for certain services and lower certain plane tickets in the process. So, I mean, they still managed to stay afloat, but Spirit just didn't catch on. And, obviously that was the cause of the first bankruptcy and the second bankruptcy as things began to decline with them, because the other airlines were somewhat taken over, with Trump being in power and Trump, taking the initiative to bring this war on. I mean, it became inevitable, obviously, that they would probably fall apart based on, like we said, surging fuel prices and things like that. But I digress.
A model that's spread across the industry, but the bargain carrier buckling under years of pressure. First, the COVID pandemic, then competition from larger airlines, and most recently, surging fuel costs, more than doubling, pushing Spirit to the edge and now out of the sky.
I hope the prices aren't too much higher, whoever else I have to fly with.
For passengers seeking refunds, the airline says tickets bought directly with a credit or debit card will be returned to the original form of payment. Those who booked through a travel agent are being told to contact that company directly.
They might be screwed.
But for customers who used vouchers, credits, or loyalty points, any potential reimbursement will be decided later through the bankruptcy process. The company has also set up a website with more details about the shutdown and next steps for travelers. Meanwhile, the airline says it will try to avoid any mid-air disruptions, ensuring flights already en route can continue to their destinations.
And that's not what happened.
Planes that have just taken off, however, could be turned back to their departure.
I even saw one video whereas they were rebooking flights that didn't exist. the few customer service representatives that were actually left over in some of these airports. And I'm like, are you guys doing that just to get rid of them? Because people were frustrated and upset, trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Like I said, people are probably trying to get home to their jobs, to their kids, to, important appointments, you name it. Job interviews, because we all know what the job market is going through, just important matters going on in people's everyday lives. And I mean, it's Donald Trump, good old Donnie Trump. We got to give thanks to good old Donnie Trump. He has struck again. He has ruined things for the American people again.
Airports.
Yep.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News, New York.
And for Spirit customers, if your flight was canceled or impacted by this, you can contact the airline's claims agent, Epic, by calling 855-952-6606.
There's no one there to answer the phone.
Or you can email them at spiritairlineinfo@epicglobal.com. Again, that number and email, it is on your screen. We'll bring it up throughout the show for you. Airlines based in North Texas are now stepping up to help passengers impacted by the Spirit shutdown. Dallas-based Southwest says people with Spirit reservations can access special fares at Southwest ticket counters through Wednesday, May 6th. That includes both domestic and international trips. American Airlines is also joining in. The Fort Worth-based carrier services 67 of the routes Spirit was operating. It says it's also working to provide transportation to Spirit employees who have been displaced during a work trip and will hold job recruiting events for anyone considering to work at their airlines. Meantime, Frontier is offering 50% off fares for flights through November 19th. Use the code SAVE-NOW when you book online through their
But
app.
even they're going for about $900 a ticket.
Is expected to impact DFW Airport. Spirit flew out of Terminal E and accounted for more than 1 million passengers in the last fiscal year, ending in September. At DFW, Spirit was the 4th largest carrier behind American Airlines, Frontier, and Delta. It also ranked as the airport's 6th largest customer, generating about $15 million in revenue during that same time period. This comes as the summer travel season kicks off later this month, and experts predict travel demand to be high despite rising costs. Recent trends show more than half of Americans are choosing to fly to their destinations this summer. We're going to continue to bring you the latest on Spirit Airlines shutdown and its impact on the industry, and of course here in North Texas.
Crazy, right? And it took 4 or 5 years for that decline to take place. I mean, COVID ruined a lot of things. And I even got to put that jacket on Donald Trump as well, because he handled COVID so poorly. I mean, I've even been, fair enough to say in past tense that Donald Trump is not 100% responsible for what happened with COVID, because COVID obviously happened to the whole world, right? But the way he handled it was so poorly done that, it caused us to fall into the mess that we've been in this country for the past, 8 years, 8-9 years or so, and instead of his administration taking responsibility or himself taking responsibility, they want to keep pointing the finger at Biden. There's statements being made that the deal that Spirit Airlines had with JetBlue, fell through because Pete Buttigieg pretty much was against the whole deal, which they're saying originated through a conversation that they had with President Biden at the time, which I think is still crazy. I mean, at the same time, I get the point that they're making, that maybe that could have saved the airline to some degree, but to some degree would it have been inevitable based on the issues that we're facing, like fuel cost, the war in Iran, and, declined in sales. JetBlue obviously is not, in a position that Spirit Airlines is in at the moment, but they would have taken on all of that debt and infrastructure, and they would have taken on the employees. I mean, that's a lot. They would have had to cut jobs eventually. They would have, they would have had to cut costs in some form of fashion eventually. I mean, it would have really helped. So my thing is, instead of pointing fingers at each other, I think there's more that could have been done. Donald Trump could have saved Spirit. He could have given them a plan like President Obama did for the auto industry back in 2008, where he gave them a bailout, but there were strategic things in place where they could pay that money back, which they eventually did. But Donald Trump he's not a President Obama. He's not of that stature and of that character and of that intelligence. Like I said, it's sad. It's sad that this is what things have come to. Anytime an airline can shut down, I mean, it's one thing that Donald Trump bankrupted casinos, but he's the cause of a whole airline that's been in place for about 30, 40 years and thousands on thousands of jobs. I mean, I feel so sorry for the individuals, for the patrons that book those flights. And a lot of people don't have the resources. They don't have the funds. They don't have the time to wait for refunds if they even get a refund. And now they've got to scramble and figure out what they're going to do. A lot of people travel for work. That's part of their weekly gig where they have to go back and forth and they've got to redo all of that. Now, granted, I would like to assume that employers might be a little bit more reasonable and understanding based on that situation. But just the fact that people have to now rearrange their whole lives because this man in office decided that he wanted to have his way like a big kid, like a big child, a spoiled child. I mean, but obviously, this is where we are in this country. I'm every day I wonder what's next and what's more to come, because it seems like every couple of months is something new. And these aren't minor situations. These are things that we just sweep under the rug because it doesn't affect everyone. These are things that affects everyone. The job market is tough right now. And for every 1,000 people that lose a job, it puts them into competition with the 1,000 that's already been out of work for who knows how long. And that's more people competing with each other. I would like to see more people have more opportunities, but the demand for opportunities is so low, obviously, so high, the demand for opportunities are so high that, the opportunities are so few that it's going to make it much more difficult for people. We've got to do better in this country somehow. The midterms are coming around, and when the midterms come around, I've been predicting this blue wave that Democrats are going to come in and sweep things, because obviously so many people in this country are frustrated and upset with what's going on, but even that's a little scary, but I still believe that. I'm predicting that to happen. Obviously we got all this redistricting going on in different places, and, they're trying to figure out how to make sure that, we can solidify the win in terms of seats, but if you take all of that out of the scenario for a second, and we just look at the American people and what we're feeling and what we're going through, I think people are just going to vote for what's in their best interest. And right now, I don't think Donald Trump is it in the minds and hearts of a lot of people. I think they feel that, we're giving you a chance. This is your second time around. You're halfway through, and we've seen nothing, and we're tired of hurting. And I'm also including his people too. Not just those of us that never voted for him to begin with, but even his people, even people in MAGA that we know have turned on him. If it gets to a point now where you got people like Marjorie Taylor Greene turning against him, and you got former Fox anchors turning against him, and you've got former MAGA YouTubers that were adamant about, him being in power that are now turning against him. People like Nick Fuentes, who's a supremacist, in this country, that has turned against him. I mean, that's when it's really bad. So I really think this blue wave is going to happen. But the important thing is that we all turn out and we all vote for what's right, and to get this country back on track, because it's going to take time, even after we do get that, get the power, given to us again, and we're back in position and make changes. It's going to take time. It didn't take him long to destroy things, but it's going to take time to get things back in order, but keep the conversation going for me. Obviously I'm going to keep following it. Hit the like button for me, and let's keep the algorithms going for me. I highly appreciate that. It's your boy Cass with Taboo Topics.